For example, Honey continued, when you drew this bird, did you know what kind of bird it was? I shook my head, but I found this nearby. I think it's one of their feathers. I handed her the bird feather. She examined it thoughtfully. Yes, that's a good start. With a sudden burst of energy, Honey set her book down, handed me my notebook, and rose from her chair, gesturing for me to follow. She was like a dog on a hunt as she prowled one bookshelf to another. When she pulled out 3 books, we went to the wood table. Honey's eyes were gleaming as she sat back down. She motioned me closer. Now, Jake, you know there are all kinds of birds, countless sizes, shapes, and colors. It can get confusing to figure out what kind of bird you're looking to identify, but there are tricks to use when you begin your search. In your guidebooks, after doing this a while, you'll have a favorite book. She tapped the one in front of her. This one's mine. The first thing I asked myself is where I saw the bird. In a tree, on the beach, or in a marsh or pond. A pine. Then it's a water bird. Was it floating or standing around? It was standing. It had long black legs. Good detail, she said, as she wrote down the information. Now what about its size, big or little? Big, I answered, and moved my hand to show her how tall the bird was. About 3 feet, she said as she wrote down the detail. Now tell me all the details you can remember about the bird. Its colors, eyes, and especially its head. Anything unusual? I had to think a minute, recalling the tall white bird when I saw it fly up to the tree. I remember it had black on the wings, and I added with excitement, it had the weirdest head. There were no feathers on it. It was bald, real scaly, and it had this long beak. I gestured to show how long. Good details. She looked again at the notebook. What color was the beak? I scratched my head. Sorry, I can't remember. That's okay. You gave us a lot to work with. Now comes the fun part. She wiggled her eyebrows. The hunt. Honey's fingers paged through the book. I could see she was having a good time. Here, she exclaimed, moving so I could get closer. Given your fine details, you have a couple of choices to consider. She pointed to one bird. This is the ibis. Let's check it against our list. She read out of the book. It's a white wading bird. Check. It has black tips on the wing. Check. Look at the beak. It's curved and red. She looked up at me. Could it be an ibis? I shook my head. No, it's too small. And I think the bird I saw had a black beak. The color and shape of the beak are important details. Honey flipped through more pages before stopping and pointing at another bird. How about an egret? It's a white bird and it's a wader, and it has a black beak. I shook my head again. The bird I saw were bigger and the head's wrong. The egret has feathers on its head, and that bird doesn't have any black on the wings. Right, you have a good eye. This bird is a snowy egret. You say it's bigger? I wonder. She turned a few pages, pointed, is this it? I immediately recognized the large white bird with the long legs and bald, scaly head and neck. I felt the thrill of discovery. Yes, that's it. Honey grinned. You saw a wood stork. You can't mistake those. They're easy to tell apart by their size and their bald heads. Though note how the black beak curves more like the ibis. You were right about how they roost in flocks in trees by the water. She once again picked up the long feather. I'm old enough to remember when the wood storks mostly lived in Florida and were put on the endangered species list. That was back in the 1980s when your daddy was born. Then they began to show up more and more in South Carolina. Now, just in the time your daddy's been alive, wood storks are off the endangered species list. That's something, isn't it? Though they're still considered threatened, we're lucky to have such a good population right here on Dwee's Island. She returned the feather and patted my cheek. I'm right proud of you, Jake. You're on your way to become a naturalist, every bit as good as your dad. You know what? I don't know when I've had such a good time. I like to say, find what you're good at and have fun with it. You're mighty good at drawing, so have fun, Jake. I smiled back, pleased for the compliment, but more because Honey was happy. We spent the evening together with Honey, teaching me how to identify a bird by its size and shape, color and habitat, or where it lived. This was the Honey I remembered, someone who was curious about life, always ready to explore, someone who knew a lot about nature. Now the books bonded us rather than dividing us. Later that night, I lay in my bed with my hands behind my head. I stared out the big round window at the night sky. There were no city lights to block the stars. They shone bright in a sky as black as the tip of the wood stork's wing. I wondered why my mom hadn't called yet. Did that mean good news or bad news? If I had my cell phone, I could flood Mom's phone with text messages. My breath hitched. Mom didn't know I'd lost my phone. Maybe she'd been trying to call me, but she had Honey's phone number too. I sighed. Mom hadn't tried to call Honey either. How's my dad, I wondered. I wanted to tell him I was reading his journal, that I was trying to be like him. I wanted to hear his voice. I started getting teary-eyed, so I sat up and went to the small wooden desk in the corner. I pulled out my journal. I had a long way to go to fill it up with words and drawings like my dad's. But the pages were no longer blank. They were beginning to fill up with the drawings and details about the animals I'd drawn. I felt the weight of it in my hands. This was my life. My observations, a diary of my days. This journal was important to me. Honey suggested I write about my day too, not just what I saw, but how the things I did or saw made me feel. Easier said than done, but I tried. I wrote down a few sentences, then stopped, bored. I wasn't so good at writing my thoughts and feelings. In my dad's journal, he wrote when he felt lonely or happy. He described things he did with his pale red. Reading his words, I felt like he was talking to me, like I knew him better. When I looked at what I wrote, it seemed so school-like. I went to the nature center, got water, the cart broke down. I was telling facts, not sharing my feelings. I scratched out the words. How could I make my words mean something? How could I write like my dad? Then the idea hit me. I could write to my dad. I tore a fresh page out of the notebook, smoothed it on my desk, took a deep breath, and imagined my dad's face. The way he smiled, smiling back, I began to write. Dear Dad, I miss you. Mom too, a lot. Honey gave me summer homework. Can you believe that? At first I was mad, but it turned out to be okay. She gave me a notebook, told me it was my journal. I had to draw and write in it all about the things I saw and did on the island, just like you did when you were a kid. Honey gave me your old journal. I hope that's okay with you. I'm reading it, and it's really good. I like hearing what you had to say. It makes me feel like you're here, talking to me. Today I tried to draw these huge white birds I saw in the lagoon. They had scaly heads that reminded me of dinosaurs, or maybe even a dragon. Can you guess the creatures? A wood stork. But Dad, it's weird here with no Wi-Fi or a cell phone. Don't ask. Not even decent TV. How did you stand it? I met two kids here. I was worried I'd be the only one on the island. They're both about my age. Macon is from Atlanta. He's real smart and big. I think he's rich too. Then there's Levy. She lives in the Isle of the Palms. She drives a boat over here all by herself. I gotta learn how to do that too. Honey said all I must do is pass a test. But guess what? I know how to drive a golf cart. That's about it. Tell Mom to call Honey's. Honey's worried about you. She tries to act normal, but I can tell it's fake. I know how she feels. I'm worried too. I love you, Dad. Your son, Jake.